going on, guys? It's Simo. So today I'm bringing to you guys my SPYRAL Knightmare Deck Profile. Now I know a lot of you guys have been requesting this because you guys know I love SPYRAL, and I've been really excited to play this build because the Nightmares just add a completely new dimension to how this deck is supposed to work. So as you guys have requested, here is my build. We're going to be talking a lot in depth as to why this works and some of the potential, pros and cons of the build altogether. But before we get into that, I want to give a huge shout out to my newest patrons as always. So big shout outs today to Ganja Grizzly as well as Hercules. You guys are the reason that this channel is growing strong. And if you guys want to help support me in the channel through Patreon, then check out the Patreon link in the description below. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. So we're going to start off as always with the main monster lineup. The main monster lineup hasn't really changed too much, but you're going to see what we have here in a moment. So starting off with 3 copies of Super Agent, I mean, this really should need no explanation. You're playing SPYRAL, you want to max out on this card as much as you can. It's basically one of your best starter slash extender cards, so you just want to basically max out on it. I'm opting to play 3 copies of SPYRAL Tough. Now, the reason I'm playing 3 Tough is that if you lose the die roll, SPYRAL is still incredibly good going second, and you want to see Tough in those instances. So I feel like maxing out on Tough is the best call here. I know some people are playing 2. That just doesn't make sense to me. Like, you might as well just play 3. The biggest issue with SPYRAL in general is not having enough cards named Super Agent, and Tough is a Super Agent, so I feel you definitely should be maxing out on this card if at all possible. Now, getting into the one-ofs, we have 1 copy of Quick Fix, 1 copy of Drone, 1 copy of Master Plan, 1 Sleeper, and 1 Last Resort. This needs no explanation either. I mean, Quick Fix is just, like, godly. Drone is just good with Drone Agent combo. Master Plan, you need to basically combo off and just do everything that the deck is really good at doing. Sleeper is essentially your win condition, but also Master Plan, helps you get there. And then Last Resort is for the Sleeper. Some people play 2 Last Resort. I don't think that's necessary. It can just be another monster that's a brick. I know you can discard it for fodder, worst case scenario, but I feel like 1 is really all you need, especially now that we have the Nightmares. Maybe before you could have made the argument, but I think 1 is realistically all you need. Now, moving on to the other one-ofs. 1 Destrudo, so I'll just put Destrudo here. So the thing with Destrudo is you basically need this card now because before we didn't have the Nightmares, so it really wasn't as necessary, but now that we have the Nightmares, the combo that you can do with Destrudo and basically pretty much any SPYRAL monster, you can do it with Quick Fix, but it's not as good, but pretty much like an Agent or a Tough, that just makes this combo in this deck just incredibly good going first. It gives you a really solid turn 1 play. So we're going to be playing a lot of cards to supplement and basically augment the Destrudo as well. And then that also gets us into the 1 copy of Nightmare Corruptor Ibli. Now this is brand new out of Flames of Destruction. For those of you who don't know, basically it's like a wolf bark on summon. If you normal summon it, you get to target a link monster in your graveyard, and you get to special summon it as long as it's linked to Nightmare Corruptor Ibli. Its effects are negated and it can't do all this other stuff, but the good thing is you're basically just going to use it to link off into something else. So like right here, if you have Double Helix, for instance, you can just link off into a Link 3. Seems pretty good. And then once it goes to the graveyard, if it was in your control, you give it to your opponent. And while Nightmare Corruptor Ibli's face up, neither you nor basically whoever's in possession of it cannot link summon. So in the instance where you revive something, you're basically locked into link summoning, or if you special summon it off of the effect of some other cards we're going to get into later, you can only link summon. But if it goes to your opponent's field from her second effect, then they can only link summon. So it puts a very good soft lock on your opponent. That can actually be crippling for Pendulum Magician because they have to waste their normal summon just to get rid of it sometimes, and that's just really good because that means their plays are going to be so suboptimal just because they have to remove this card. It can be a little bit bricky, but it's still, you basically have to play it if you're playing the Nightmare build. Now moving on to hand traps, 3 copies of Ash Blossom, the best hand trap in the game, pretty much hands down. It stops all the best power cards in the game for the most part. And then we're playing 3 copies of Ghost Ogre. This is really all I'm playing in terms of the hand trap lineup here. 6 realistically, the FTK is still running around, but I feel like this is enough. There's also some other cards we're playing we'll get to later, but this is pretty much good enough because the problem is since you are a combo deck at the same time, you don't want to clog yourself with too many hand traps. And the thing is, we want to go first with this build. Most of the SPYRAL builds in the past have wanted to go second that I've created, and the thing is, we actually can go first now and consistently put out a board that's going to be very hard for our opponent to deal with. So we don't want to have too many hand traps if we're opting to go first, but we want to have enough that we draw them in case we go second. So hope that makes sense. Now, moving on to the spell cards, 3 copies of Foolish Burial Goods. You want to max out on this because this card basically just says double summon or Monster Reborn for Spiral monsters, depending on the circumstance. It's a really good extender. This plus Quick Fix basically equals just, you know, the combo or just a combo in general. This also combos with other cards in the deck as well. It's just a really nice extender. Sometimes, you know, it can be cloggy, you might draw 2, but you really want to see this card, so that's why we're going to be maxing out at 3. 3 copies of Terraforming. So Terraforming is actually pretty good now because we actually have a means to get our Resort back into our deck. And one of the main combos of Spiral Knightmare is Resort plus Agent. So we actually want to see Resort now in a lot of instances, and that's obviously why we're going to be playing 3 Terraforming. But to supplement that, we're also playing 2 copies of Dragon's Ravine. I guess I'll just throw the Resort there as well. Ravine is obviously to tutor out the Destrudo, and that's perfectly fine because the nice thing about playing a card like Ravine is that it allows us to discard the dead cards in our hand, like Master Plan, or maybe the Rescue, or just anything like that that we don't want that might be a brick card that in the graveyard actually has a lot of utility and can be an extender. As long as Destrudo gets in the graveyard, I mean, you're pretty much going to be set up for your Ancient Fairy Dragon combos and things like that. I feel like 2 is fine. I mean, we are already playing 3 Terraforming, so that's realistically all you want. I think 3 is just far too much because then it's just going to get really cloggy. And then obviously 1 Resort because we can only play 1 Resort. Next up, we have Spiral Gear Big Red. I'm only opting to play 1 of this. Some players choose to play 2, and basically they choose to play 2 because then you have more discard fodder for your nightmares. I feel like 1 is enough because, again, it's a hard once per turn. I just feel like, you know, once you have it and use it, you kind of just want to be done with it. You can also reset it with Griffin if you really want to. So I feel like 1 is fine, but again, if you feel 2 is better, then go for it. I'm not, you know, I wouldn't scoff at that. Then we have the 1 Assault. Again, this is just basically double summon, but the other effect also can come up too when you have stuff like Tough or even Sleeper. Hell, Agent as well. I mean, the drawing effect can actually really unbrick your hand depending on the circumstances. 1 Foolish Burial. This has more added utility now because we played Destrudo. Just another way to access Destrudo in general. 1 Monster Reborn. I just like this better than the second Big Red personally because it can hit anything instead of just having to hit the Big Red, or excuse me, a Spiral monster. So Monster Reborn, just all around solid card. 1 for 1. 1 for 1 in this deck has always been fucking ridiculous. This needs no explanation. Like, Quick Fix and Drone is just ridiculous. Then we have Reinforcement of the Army. This allows you to get whatever you need, Tough for Agent for the most part, but that's realistically, that's enough. 1 Soul Charge. So we haven't played Soul Charge in this deck for a while because I've always played the going second variant. This card is game. Like, if you resolve a double Helix and you have Soul Charge in your hand, you're not losing that game. Like, guaranteed, you're not losing. Because then you can just amass, like, the ultimate, just, like, I'm not losing board, and it's just gonna get ridiculous. So, Soul Charge, when you're playing the going first variant, is basically a mandatory card. And then I'm playing 1 Upstart. So this is what I'm playing instead of the second Big Red. I want the deck to be as consistent as possible, especially because we are playing a combo-heavy deck, and we want to have as many combo pieces as possible, so I felt that the Upstart kind of outweighed the Big Red, just for making those percentages a little bit better in the instances where we want to see what we want. So I felt that that's better, but again, if you feel the second Big Red's better, feel free to swap that out. Now for the trap cards, we're playing 2 copies of Spiral Mission Rescue. We actually want to play minimum 2 copies. Some people play 3. I feel 3 is a little bit too much, but 2 is all we need minimum for the combos in this deck, and typically that's all you're going to need to win. So I feel 3 is a bit too excessive, but I feel 2 is just, you know, absolutely perfect for what it does. It's Monster Reborn. I mean, what else could you ask for? And then finally, 2 copies of Infinite Impermanence. Now, I guess this is technically a hand trap, so it's like my 7th and 8th hand traps, but this is really cool because not only is this a hand trap for when you go second, but what's neat about this is if you have this in your hand when you have a combo that you can make Griffin, you can discard this for the cost of one of your nightmares, and then when you summon Griffin, you can reset this to your field, so you actually get to use one of those discards as essentially a card you're going to resurrect, so you help mitigate that cost. Infinite Impermanence is very powerful, but yet again, this could also just be 2 extra hand traps if you so wish. I really just like having it as a trap card for going first, but it's also a hand trap going second, so I like the flexibility that the card has. But again, if you want to swap it out for something, you know, like a hand trap, or maybe if you want to play like Solemn Strike or Solemn Judgment, you know, that's your call. I just feel like I really like the fact that it's very good in both instances. So that's it for the main deck, 40 cards. Moving on to the extra deck. So 2 copies of Double Helix. This is, again, standard. We don't need 3 copies. 3 is a little bit excessive. You should win with only 2. 1 copy of Nightmare Mermaid. So Mermaid is how we get Nightmare Corruptor Ibly, excuse me, to our field. When it's summoned, you have to use a Nightmare monster to summon it. You discard a card, special summon basically a Nightmare monster from your deck, which is Ibly, and then basically you're locked into only being able to use Link summons while Ibly is face up. But at that point, you're just going to go and Link off into some other things, get Ibly off the board and onto your opponent's field. So that's the setup there. 1 Nightmare Phoenix. I have some of these proxy just because I haven't met my friend yet who has my real version, so I apologize. But Nightmare Phoenix is needed for the combo board. It's also good because it's spell and trap removal, and it's 1900 for a Link too. Seems pretty good. Nightmare Goblin. Nightmare Goblin, again, is just really good. It's a Seraphonite as long as you basically can just get it on the field and just have a Link arrow open. So really powerful. Nightmare Unicorn. Now this is the card I'm most excited about because this card allows us to shuffle Spiral Resort back into the deck. If you guys recall, I used to play Shuffle Reborn in tandem with the Foolish Burial Goods to do the same thing. Now we don't have to do that. We have an extra deck monster that does that for us. So that's incredibly powerful, but it's also just removal for anything we want if we don't need to use it for the Spiral Resort. So a lot of flexibility there, incredible card. Then we have the Griffin. Griffin is just ridiculous. I mean, it's a skill drain on legs, basically. Some of the boards you can create with this are just stupid, and basically if you're playing Nightmares, you're gonna wanna play Griffin. Against True Draco, it's pretty subpar, but every other matchup, it's gonna be fantastic. 1 copy of Underclock Taker. You definitely need this. This is mandatory because of the Ancient Fairy Dragon combo. We didn't have this before, like way back, so now I'm happy that we do. 1 Deco Talker. Some Spiral players aren't playing this, and I don't know why, because if you have the 2-card OTK going second, you need Deco Talker. Now, in some instances, you might still be able to kill them anyway, but I'd rather just use as minimal resources as possible, and Deco Talker basically makes it so that I can do that. So I feel like Deco Talker is mandatory in my eyes, but again, if you guys see it, that you want to cut it, feel free. 1 Trigate Wizard. This is for the combo board that basically, you know, needs no explanation. Firewall Dragon. This is just good because it's another disruptor if you're able to create it in co-linked with other monsters. Borolo Dragon basically can just out a myriad of different things, especially our opponent's Borolo Dragons and Masterpiece, so that's pretty nice. Moving on to the Synchros, we have Ancient Fairy Dragon, necessary for the combo with Dragon Ravine and Destrudo. 1 Black Rose Dragon, which is very good for going second, so basically fills the opposite role of Ancient Fairy Dragon. Black Rose can basically just level off the field and allow us to go in and basically set up our own board, so gives Destrudo a little bit extra flexibility. And for the 15th card, I actually want to leave that to you guys because I couldn't really decide on what made the most sense. I mean, for your 15th slot, you could play something like Princess Sprite, which is really good. It's not going to come up a lot, but in the instances that it does, it's usually pretty good. You could play Link Karibo, which would just be nice in order to just help facilitate some more plays with Quick Fix, kind of help move it off the board, things like that. You could also just play an extra deck target for Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries, like Heavy Metal Foe's Electromite. You could also play Nightmare Cerberus. There's a bunch of different cards. I couldn't really just pick one, so I thought I would just leave that 15th extra deck slot up to you guys. So guys, that's gonna do it for my Nightmare Spiral deck profile. I really hope you guys enjoyed, and let me know down in the comments what you guys think about this deck. I'd really love to hear your thoughts. So guys, thank you so much for watching the video. Be sure to like the video as always, subscribe to the channel for more amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content, and if you found this video helpful, consider backing me on Patreon, because just by pledging only $1 a month, you're investing in my ability to continue bringing you amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content. So thanks so much again, and we'll see you next time. 2, 3.